From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granosky. So glad to be with you again for another journey. We will do it no matter what happens in the news. We'll come together. We'll figure it out on this broadcast together, neighbor to neighbor. That's what it takes. It takes people coming together and stop getting into the political frame. The political frame divides us. The political frame gets us thinking in terms of aggression. And that's just not acceptable. We have to go into a kind of framework that allows us to escape the nonsense. So there's a lot of stories today that I want to get to in the news. But first, I wanted to look at this article I saw at pathos.com. As an example, I've talked about Rene Girard's work before on this program. Rene Girard is a late anthropologist from Stanford University, taught at Stanford and many other places before. He was a groundbreaking theorist that saw that the Bible was the key to all knowledge, that it helped understand and explain and expose the hidden violence of our past, how we use myths to justify and cover up acts of sacrificial scapegoating, right? And so what happens with Rene Girard's work is that when people encounter his ideas, whether you're conservative or left or whatever, there's always going to be a tendency to still be blinded to the dominant myths of your time, such that when you see the deep insights that he has to reveal about human nature and conflict and violence and mimetic envy, where people are doing tit-for-tat envy, coveting each other's objects, coveting each other's statuses, and so forth, it's easy for people to take his theory and just use it as a way to justify their own preconceived ideology and use it to attack their opponents. So I saw this story that exemplifies what happens when people erroneously try to apply Rene Girard's work in a way that totally misses the point. And the title is, it's in pathos.com. It says, "It isn't scapegoating if you're guilty," by Chuck McKnight. It says the scapegoat mechanism describes how groups of people will latch onto a scapegoat, sometimes an individual, sometimes another group of people, to take the unmerited blame for their problems. Developed by folks like Rene Girard, this theory is taken from Leviticus 16, wherein the priest was instructed to take a literal goat, symbolically place the sins of the people onto it, and then send it out into the wilderness, banishing the people's sins along with it. Central to this concept is the fact that the scapegoat is innocent of the accusations directed against them. The people making the accusations are projecting their own shortcomings onto the scapegoat, rather than dealing with their problems themselves. They pour their anger into the scapegoat, persecuting, killing, banishing, or otherwise doing away with them, thus achieving catharsis and creating a temporary peace within their group. And so far, this article's pretty accurate here. So let's continue. We see this play out when conservatives make a scapegoat out of South American immigrants, blaming them for any number of problems in their communities. And we see it when conservatives make a scapegoat out of the LGBTQ community, blaming them for any number of problems in their own marriages. Lest this start to feel one-sided, we also see it when liberals make a scapegoat out of homeless populations, blaming them for any number of problems in their cities. These are instances of scapegoating because the scapegoats aren't actually the ones causing the problems. Those making the accusations are projecting their own issues onto the scapegoats. It makes them feel good. It gives them an other against which they can rally, but it doesn't solve their root problems, and it causes additional harm to the people scapegoated. This brings us to wearing masks and getting the vaccine in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I keep hearing folks claim that anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers are being scapegoated for their actions, and that's just patently absurd. Notice the word patent. That's a key term to understand the problem with a lot of this article. For sure, a lot of folks are angry at anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. I am entirely out of patience with them myself. And absolutely, precautions are being taken to keep the unmasked and unvaccinated away from the rest of the population. But the difference between these actions and scapegoating is the simple fact that the accused are very much guilty of the charges brought against them. They are the problem. Now, this is an example of someone who doesn't understand mimetic theory, but they see how powerful it is. So rather than allowing it, and more importantly, mimetic theory points us to biblical self-examination, Christian self-reflection. Rather than allowing that to do its work in you, you just use it as some kind of cheap novel toy to, try to justify your bias and scapegoating against your perceived enemy. So, first of all, Rene Girard talks a lot about how to have a scapegoat is to not know you have one, okay? And it's to assume that your person is truly guilty of that which you believe they're guilty of. So this is a guy that doesn't understand Rene Girard's theory at all, because the fact that he is so certain that they are guilty, as he says, very much guilty of the charges brought against them. They are the problem. How does he know that? He's operating under mimetic TV party groupthink. And so let's continue. He says, masks save lives, vaccines save lives. This science is not disputable or up for debate. Well, he doesn't even understand what science is. That's a dogma, okay? That's called political ideology when you say something is not to be disputed, meaning you cannot disagree and you are not allowed to debate. Excuse me, sir, you don't know what you're talking about. We just had the article the other day, just Harvard epidemiologists, right, talking about the problems with the lockdowns, how they've hurt people and how there's been no correlation of it, countries that use lockdowns having reduction in loss of life. We've had Dr. Alexander on, former HHS scientist, former WHO scientist, evidence-based medical scientist, who's explored how the lockdowns were a total disaster, he worked with the top of the CDC and FDA, these folks in the task force for this pandemic. Okay? And it very much is in dispute. It very much is up for debate. But see, the problem is that even when you can have a great intellectual insight presented to you, like mimetic theory, it doesn't mean it changes your heart to be able to soften up and understand and have self-awareness to see that what you think is settled science is not necessarily science or settled at all. It's not merely about, the article says, it's not merely about the lives of those who wear the mask and get the vaccines. Those who choose not to get vaccinated or refuse to wear masks are literally killing other people with their selfish actions. Of course, we're outraged about that. Again, total hysterical nonsense. So that shows you, I want to show you that it's not about intellectual conversion alone. You have to have wisdom. You can study Rene Girard on Wikipedia page and think you know what scapegoating is. But then when you actually try to apply it in real world, it looks like this nonsense if you're not able to have discernment. I understand how the herd mentality of mimesis and covetousness and envy and aggression and scapegoating cuts in all directions. I get it. But the idea that you can just dismiss people and say, it is not to be disputed, they are the problem, they kill. This is a guy who doesn't know anything about the penetrating insights of mimetic theory applied to the human heart. But this is an example of, I just want to show you this as an example of how people can know a thing but not know it at all, right? You can get a superficial reading of something and then use it as a bludgeon to try to justify your bigotry towards other people. So again, there's no evidence that the masks have any, unless you're using an N95 mask, properly fitted and properly worn. There's no evidence that these masks are doing anything. Go look at the Denmark study, look at the different evidence that we've presented. And then the idea that people who don't get this product are killing people, again, there's no evidence to suggest that. You have people that our own government, which is very, very biased and owned by big pharmaceutical companies, as we demonstrate every day, or as it demonstrates every day, has come out and said that people who get both doses are carrying the same amount of viral load, and they're transmitting it. And then we had multiple studies come out, the Tel Aviv University study showing that natural herd immunity actually provides a longer-term, more wide-ranging, broad-based defense, which is what you want to get if you want to stamp out a pandemic and reach herd immunity. You want the longest-lasting version of immunity in the population as quickly as possible. That's the whole point that science has always known about how you deal with herd immunity for infectious diseases. But this is a person who's owned by TV party groupthink in this article, at least, and they don't have the ability to even use a deep, self-reflective insight like mimetic theory in the proper toolkit. So I want to show you. It's not about just study mimetic theory and then apply this and there you go. It's about self-awareness. It's about having epistemological humility and actually understanding what science is, to not say, it's not for debate. You are the problem if you don't agree with what the TV told me to think. Okay, sorry, buddy. You're looking like a fool. Folks keep framing this in terms of individual liberty, but any individual's liberty must end where another person's life begins. We have the liberty to drive our vehicles on the road, but we do not have the liberty to drive while drunk or at unsafe speeds or in the wrong lanes. Well, guess what, buddy? If you cared about your neighbor, you'd be telling them to stop eating vegetable oils, which are driving, according to the peer-reviewed paper Frontiers in Physiology published by UC Davis professor Bruce Hammack and his team, showing that people who are eating vegetable oils are the ones who are having this inflammatory cytokine storm, this acute respiratory distress syndrome. It's caused by the mass consumption of vegetable oils, which bioaccumulate in your body as linoleic acid, which becomes leukotoxin, a type of diol that is in the body that for people who have severe severe cytokine immune reactions for this disease. So this idea, of course, that, the only solution is what Big Pharma tells me, even though the guy, which we're going to get into, what's his name, Han, who helped develop the fast track for the warp speed for Moderna's product, has already gone off to work for the banker that was funding, the banking company, the financial company that was funding Moderna's project, even though the other guy who was in charge of this stuff has now already got a job at Pfizer, Scott Gottlieb or whatever. So this is clownish level analysis. But you see this even, again, I'm pointing out, you can expect this in most, low info media outlets, CNN, that kind of garbage. But to see people who study mimetic theory and still, right over their head, can't get it, can't see how it's supposed to deconstruct all groupthink. I've never told you, you are the bad person if you get a product. No one's ever said that on this program, at least that I've not heard. And I wouldn't accept that talk because you don't blame people and say, you are the thing. Even though Dr. Geert Vanden Bossche, another impeccable scientist with a lot of experience, has showed in his theory a great case, and many others have agreed with it, that these, the way they've rolled out the prophylactic products, the way they've done them, could actually be helping to accelerate viral escape, because the variants, they're seeming to evolve most on the spike protein structure part of the virus, which is the only part of the virus that's been targeted by these products that they're telling you, you can only take this and nothing else. So that's about it with this article. It's just kind of the same stuff all the way through. But, people are paralyzed by mimetic groupthink, even when they think they understand what mimetic theory actually says. That's the point. So it's more than just, rote memory like a textbook. Oh, I remember what the definition of Rene Girard's theory is. No, you actually have to actually allow it to penetrate your worldview and break the mythic nonsense that you are swimming in, including that which is being parroted by all the most powerful corporations and governments with monopolies over your life. And you somehow don't have any suspicion that maybe, just maybe, the same people who have a revolving door relationship with pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer that literally have criminal records of misleading the public about products so they can make billions, that literally have records of going to Nigeria and giving kids experimental deadly products and then trying to cover it up by bashing the attorney general. The idea that those companies whose entire business model is about creating patented new drugs whenever there's a disease that is a problem, the idea that they would have a dog in the fight to make disinformation campaigns about generic drugs, that could possibly never happen. There's no way. I mean, that's the kind of silliness that we're dealing with. But that's why we're breaking all these myths apart on this broadcast. Back in just a moment with more news headlines and our special guests as we continue live on A Neighbor's Choice. 727-587-1040 is the number to call in. 727-587-1040, or write a comment on our live stream. We'll get to it. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Covering the courts as a reporter requires a sharp understanding of the law while separating fact from opinion. As a journalist, attorney, and former prosecutor, I'm taking you behind the legal headlines every week to keep you informed and educated. I'm Felix Vega, anchor of Florida Law Today, sponsored by the Florida Law Group. Now more than ever, law is news. From high-profile trials to court decisions directly impacting our communities, we have you covered. Join me Saturday morning at 10 a.m. right here on News Talk 1040 WHBO for Florida Law Today.
Have you ever wondered if your marketing plans were actually making an impact? Most business owners know that it takes someone like you in the driver's seat to take control and change your company's future. Hi, I'm Jeff Philbin, Director of Business Strategy at Shafino Lee. Our advertising and media agency has been in Tampa for nearly 3 decades, delivering strategic branding experiences that deliver immediate results. Let's connect at shafinolee.com and begin your journey towards real impact today.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski, your host. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com, where we're going to have a real interesting time coming up soon, and that is September 9th, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're going to do a mimetic anthropology Q&A on Zoom. We're going to dive into how to properly apply mimetic theory to current events, deconstructing mythology in ancient times, deconstructing texts of persecution and more recent history, as well as starting to sketch out questions for people about the biblical texts that people want to know. How do they help us understand current events? It's all going to be explored on September 9th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, our mimetic anthropology Q&A on Zoom. It's not going to be we're going to keep it at a limited small group to test it out and just see how people like the format. and we'll go from there. So email me hello@aneighborschoice.com if you'd like an invitation to that event coming up. So here's a quote. I think this is in the Atlantic.com. Pretty sure because I just saw it before there. But it says, people in South Australia will be forced to download. Poor Australia. My goodness. It's like every day we hear something horrible. People in South Australia will be forced to download an app that combines facial recognition and geolocation. So human beings are going to be forced to download an app where they've got to take out their little smartphone and it will recognize their face and it will record where they're at. The state will text them at random times like an abusive partner. And that's my ad. And thereafter, they will have 15 minutes to take a picture of their face and the location where they are supposed to be, like a dog. Should they fail, the local police department will be sent to follow up in person to intimidate the slave. Quote, we don't tell them how often or when on a random basis they have to reply within 15 minutes, Premier Stephen Marshall explained. I think every South Australian should feel pretty proud that we are the national pilot for the home-based quarantine app. National pilot. See, I told you, they want to use Australia as like little experimental social Stanford prison experiment hell. These little punks, these Davos punks that are fascists that want to use human beings like property. And they're trying to, let's experiment Australia, very docile population. Let's try them out. Let's see how this works and see if we can scale it. Let's see how they react. Let's ban protests. What the heck kind of a fascist pig country bans your ability to even protest? Can't go out, can't do nothing. And now you got to report every 15 minutes to this psychopath government? What a pathetic joke. Let's use the proper language for this stuff. Let's not beat around the bush. This is disgraceful. Meanwhile, in Florida, Chuck Calesto says, breaking report, Florida Department of Health to begin issuing $5,000 fines to businesses, schools, and government agencies that require people to provide proof of a COVID-19 vaccination. So that's the opposite side of things here in Florida. That's why Florida is the home of the liberty movement. That's why we're here. And so a lot of people will say, well, that's infringing on private property. You know, I guess what? I mean, I get that it's a complicated topic in some sense, in theoretical sense, but we're at a state of affairs where we have a coordinated attack against people's ability to even have a life, to exist, okay? Because you can't have a job, you can't do this, you can't go here, you can't go do that. And the only reason why everybody's in this situation is because of government first funding the lab that unleashed this disgusting attack against human health, and then covering up that they did, and still covering up that they did, and then shoving us into the dumbest approach to treat this issue by not allowing people to see early treatments because, ooh, they're precious gods and big pharma. They don't like generic drugs. They never have. This is not the first time for the clueless folks. They're low-info folks. This has been happening since the dawn of the modern 20th century style DC elite establishment. They always wanted to run disinfo campaigns against off-patent generic drugs because that's not Big Pharma's business model. They make new products that have patents. That's the patently absurd thing about our healthcare system.
The battle is just heating up.
If the hot summer sun doesn't heat you up,
it's time to turn the heat up on Congress.
Today's issues will.
You know, I just don't understand.
We're in such trouble. America should just wake up. People need to see it. The mainstream media and how it's out of control.
I don't get it.
So I think it's a conspiracy. No. This is payback. This is our freedom. This is our life. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Stay cool with us. News Talk 1040. WHBO.
The death toll from Ida climbing to at least 40 across 8 states. President Biden says FEMA teams are coordinating with states and called for long-term solutions from Congress.
Congress returns this month. I'm going to press for their action on my Build Back Better plan. That's going to make historic investments in electrical infrastructure, modernizing our roads, bridges, our water systems.
The president traveling to hard-hit Louisiana tomorrow.
In Mandeville, Louisiana, real estate agent Brendan Newfield is ripping out carpet and drywall soaked when Ida pushed the waters of Lake Pontchartrain into her business.
Didn't think it was going to be that bad. It took a turn and was worse than what we anticipated.
Even blocks away from the lake at Paul Murphy's restaurant.
This is probably the most serious water, probably even a little bit more serious than Katrina.
Both business owners say they plan to clean up, fix up, and reopen. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Power remains out for nearly 1 million customers in the state. Michelle Franzen, ABC.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon, I'm meteorologist Ellen Archer at your News Talk 1040 WHBO Weather Center. Our radar is indicating less showers around today than yesterday. Now, partly cloudy this afternoon. It's a 40% chance of a scattered anytime thunder shower with a high of 88, 20% tonight at 78. Tomorrow, partly sunny, drops to a 40% scattered anytime, but mainly afternoon thunder shower and a high of 90. I'm meteorologist Ellen Archer, News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski, and we're seeing a lot of viral videos of storming mad mothers who are sick and tired of the little Stanford prison experiment social conditioning taking place in government schools. Now, you know what I say about this. You got to get out of the government schools, okay? Even if they didn't do their COVID terrible, heavy-handed approach to kids, right? Even if they didn't do the critical theory stuff everybody doesn't like now, they are fundamentally rotten to the core in their monopoly. And so they're not something you want to, if you want to give your kids the best shot at having a, critical thinking and a positive image of themselves and exploring their innovation and their creativity and their uniqueness, you just don't go to government cookie cutter schools. I've been to government school myself. I also went to private school. I was homeschooled. I did all 3. I can tell you, especially where things have headed even since then, you don't want to be in government schools unless you're doing unless your kid is in a high school state and they really ask to go there because they want to be like an anthropologist and do field work analyzing how predatory monopolies do conditioning. So if they want to have real world example, be on the field like an anthropologist or someone doing analysis of sociology, maybe that would be an example for why they should go into government school for a time. But they should have that kind of self-awareness before they enter in, and that should be something you discuss with them. So anyways, let's play this clip from a recent such school board meeting. I believe this one's in California, where you can see the tenor and the tone of women who are sick and tired of their kids being predated by these very heavy-handed ideologues.
My name is Carrie Bowler. You see my shirt, it says Mama, and I'm a mama bear, and I know there's a lot of mama bears here tonight, and no one's going to mess with our cubs. That's right. Just so you know. I'm a resident of Encinitas, born and raised San Diegan, and tonight I'm simply here to tell you to unmask our children. We're done begging. In fact, we're done asking for permission. That's right. We are going to be unmasking our children today. That's right. The pandemic is over. The parents are done. We're done asking you, public servants, for permission. We are done. You can all wear your masks. In fact, you can wear 2 masks and 3 masks. You can wear gloves. You can have plexiglass. You can do whatever you need to do to keep you safe. But we, the parents, believe we have a choice for our children. And I don't know who you think you are, that you think that you have more of a say than us, the parents, and our doctors. I don't know who any of you think you are. I really don't. It ends today. That's right. We are declaring our freedom tonight. We do not consent. to the lies, fear-mongering, and abuse. You all know it's abuse. This is tyrannical leadership, poor leadership. None of you are willing to stand up for our children. This is why we are all here tonight, because we're fed up. We're done asking permission. We're done playing games. The pandemic is over. We are done, Andre. We're done.
That's right.
See the chairs that you're sitting in? We own those chairs. See these lights? We pay for the lights, not you. And I want to let you know, Emily, you're up in 2022. Greg, you're up in 2022. Marla, you're up in 2022. And Jody, you're up in 2024. I know that myself, I would love to run for school board.
Me too.
And I know many others. We're not going to replace all of you. So I'm going to promise you tonight that I will campaign against you. I will fundraise against you, and I will make sure that none of you ever serve in a public space ever again.
That's right.
The time is up.
So, this is the tone that it's at all over the country, it appears. And school boards are saying, oh my goodness, we're victims. People actually think that we're their servants. We're not. We're here to be servants of cronies, special interests, big union interests, crooked companies that, are milking the taxpayer with all their little scam programs that they sell these school boards on. And then these radical fringe ideologues that want to push their fascist ideology into the minds of kids, sick people. It's disgusting. And these parents should be livid, and they should do whatever they can to get their kids out of harm's way from these failed institutions. That's how we'll build back better. You see Biden using that dumb slogan. We like to take the slogans from the dummies. So they use that slogan, Build Back Better plan, my Build Back Better plan. It's the same thing they all say, and they want you to act like, oh, that's not the same thing I heard everybody else say, Canada and all these other countries. It's a clown show up there. It's a clown show. Let's just continue looking at some of the other things I've collected in our stack of news going on today. And some of these are just little comments. I saw this by a lady named Jacqueline Clark. She says, got my first Pfizer shot last week in hospital this week, first migraine of my life, transient aphasia aura. My brain forgot how to read for 30 minutes, thought I was having a stroke. This is why it's morally and ethically wrong to mandate medicine. And that's exactly right. We're going to allow victims to speak. Okay? We're going to allow victims to speak on this program. I don't care what these stupid social media platforms want to do. You will not silence the voice of victims. You will not. You are not going to silence the voice of the victims of our predatory military-industrial complex that sent people to die for lies and profits. You're not going to silence the victims of people who have been coerced into taking a product that they may not have needed. You're not going to do it. We will you keep censoring, we will get louder and louder and louder. And your dumb ideology is going to go into the ash heap of history because you played your game on coercion, and coercion's time is up. The master of history, Jesus Christ, is in charge of our world affairs. You're not, and you will not succeed by continuing to use the sacrificial imposition, stomping out generic medicines like stinky pigs. Frickin' pigs is what they are. You want to talk about livestock? That's a piggish move to try to do a disinformation campaign like Big Tobacco on products that don't have patents. These guys are filthy in the way they act. Filthy. They did this back with Z-Pack too, by the way. Last year, we had Professor Michael P. Lasanti, chair of translational medicine at Salford University in England, 39,000 citations, according to Google Scholar, one of the most cited scholars, dead or alive. And he came out early on and said, get into the Z-Pack, that will help with this pandemic. And no, nobody wanted to hear it. And then I saw it. It wasn't as wide as this new hit piece on the other generic drug they're attacking right now, but they did I kept looking. I would type in azithromycin and search on the fascist search engines, to see what the establishment's pushing. And they kept pushing all these stories saying, worried about azithromycin, it could cause problems with your heart. Watch out. There's no proof it does anything. But you know what they never attacked? They never attacked remdesivir. Remdesivir. That was a new patented product that was rolled out. It had a patent, and that means it was part of the good old boys club. Talk about fascists, these bigots. And so remdesivir to this day has done there's no evidence it's done anything. It's done jack squat to help people with this disease. But you know what you won't find when you search for these trash, if you use trash Twitter, trash search engines, you search for, or, use Google News, whatever, and you search for remdesivir, you're not going to see hit pieces. You're not going to see it framed in the nasty way, failed corporatist product, remdesivir. They don't frame it that way because it's an on-patent product. And so therefore, you don't see any disinformation attacks against these products because the entire business model of Big Pharma is that, okay, anything in terms of dietary change, that's excluded from research because you can't patent it. So removal of foods like vegetable oils, like I talk about, dead in the water. There's no place for that to be talked about by your corrupt, fake public health officials. Number 2, generic drugs, off the table. Can't talk about them. People use them all the time. Off-label prescriptions are used all the time by doctors. But when there's a big disease like cancer or this new pandemic, that's when the hit pieces go on against off-label prescriptions. But for other diseases that are very dangerous and life-threatening, off-label prescriptions are used all the time. So that's their model, which is, okay, off-labels, nothing, you're dead in the water in terms of real money and research because you can't patent it. It's off-label, it's generic, right? It's a generic drug. That's what I'm trying to say. Off-patent is what I meant to say. So off-patent, generic drugs, dead in the water for our model of medical industry. That's not free markets. That's called corporate fascism. Government's the one that grants patents. Government's the ones that make the FDA put $1 billion price tag to get through their approval process, which only things that are patentable can get through. So they're the ones that create this rigged market. It's not freedom's fault, as your dumb TV puppets will tell you, your Muppets on TV, the TV party. They'll tell you, oh, it's your freedom's fault. Take more of your power away. Go get your app like the Australians and take a photo of yourself every 15 minutes for your abusive government to check in on you like a freak. This stupid stuff, man. This is pathetic to watch this stuff happen every day, But the people are awakening. I think the world's population is sick and tired of these losers. There's certainly more of us than there are of the Davos crowd, but they've got the Walking Dead on their side. Unfortunately, we got to help them get out of groupthink every day because we're in groupthink too. It's like you can feel the magnetic attraction to pull into the reciprocal aggression that you see with tribalism, right? And I did want to, that leads me to a point. We saw this story. I wanted to cover this too. Candace Owens tweeted out that she was recently denied access to being able to take a test, right, to see if she had the disease. She tried, and the person who owns the COVID test thing said, "I am not going to fulfill your request for a test because I don't agree with your politics." And so she denied a black woman access to a vital thing that they say you have to take so that you don't spread it and hurt people. That's their whole narrative, but it went out the window as long as you were an other. Okay, so that's what the left has been programmed by the hateful TV party to do. It's sad. They know not what they do. Father, forgive them. So she did that, and then she said, "This is ridiculous. I'm going to blast them out." And then the left McWoke zombies came out and said, "Well, Candace, it's their private business. They have a right to refuse who they want." And so and I want to point this out. So yes, that's true, but that's not the point. Just because someone has a business and they say, "I don't want to do business with you," doesn't mean they're not hypocrites. Doesn't mean they're not brainwashed into hate. It doesn't mean you as a customer can't expose their bigotry. That's also part of the market. Okay. So they don't get that part, but it's just interesting to me to see that this is a mimetic theory explanation for a second. Girard says that as we fight for the same object, in this case, we're fighting for power. Some people want liberty and that's their form of power. I want my freedoms back. It's not for yours to take. And other people say, no, I want to give every freedom I possibly can and follow the herd because I feel safe and the TV told me to because they have fancy cameras and makeup on their faces when they tell me. So there's that party. And look, there's crazies on both sides. I get it. But here's the point. The more you fight for the same object, which is power, the more undifferentiated you become. And that's what you see. It's interesting how you see the merger of the parties, even in their zeal of disagreement, that at any moment the left is saying, hey, my body, my choice for abortion. Next minute they say, you must take this product in the boosters, or you are a monster who should be excluded from grocery stores. What? And then the next minute, and it happens on the right too, because you hear folks on the right saying, hey, let's have government bigger than ever to fight off all these corporate things. So you see them losing their principles. They become more like the left on principles. And then you see the left mimicking the rhetoric of the right, talking about, hey, it's free market, it's private business. So you see that there's a merging, an undifferentiation of chaos that's merging because we're still fighting tooth and nail reciprocally for the same object, which is power. So that's the thing that has to be cooled off here. That's why, and I know it's easier said than done, I get it, but that's what we have to stop. That's what we have to use social Aikido to disrupt that mimetic reciprocal aggression, that tit for tat coveting for the same object, which is power, right? Ultimately. And I was thinking how the folks on both sides of these debates, and there's not just two, but in terms of the TV presented sides, that they both want the same thing. Everybody tells themselves, in terms of the average person, well, I'm doing this because whether you're for masks or you're for lockdowns or for liberty, and whether you're for never-ending boosters and facial recognition check-ins from your government every 15 minutes, or you're for generic drugs and vitamin D and stuff like that, whatever you are, you're motivated by the same thing on some fundamental level, which is, at least in your mind, you tell yourself, I'm doing this to save those who I love. And that makes us undifferentiated even in that moment. Even though we seem farther apart as rivals for power, we're closer together than we've ever been in this weird way, because we're both desiring the same thing, even though we may be deluded by lies on some things. We are desiring the same exact thing, which is, I desire to do X, Y, and Z, called liberty, generic drugs, or mask mandates, lockdowns forever, forced drugs into your body. Whichever way you go. It doesn't mean they're equally wrong or right. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's identical what we're really striving for, which is, I'm trying, in my mind, to protect those I love. So love is the root of, I love my family. I love my friend. I love this person. And the TV tells me, if I do this, if I can just shred my liberties, I will shred every liberty in the world. Some people think, or they feel this way, more likely. I would shred every liberty in the world if what the TV is telling me is that it will save my loved ones. And in that way, it's a beautiful thing, in that warped way, right? But the sad, horrible thing about it is that when you're being manipulated by people with corrupt and dubious information, with fringe ideas, and they consider themselves above the fray because they work for government or they work for giant companies or media companies, and they think they're better than you, that hubris and that arrogance ends up twisting that love that people have into falling into the traps set by foxes guarding the hen house. Let's take a break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice and do some more news analysis. Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gronowski. And I'm just looking at some more stories here. We're not going to allow victims to be silenced. That's the mantra of our show here. We stand up for all scapegoats. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what your race is. Doesn't matter your gender, your political ideology, your wealth, your zip code, your political affiliation. We're not going to allow these people to tear us apart. We're going to use our discernment and our wisdom, and we're going to win. Because winning is about love. It's about forgiveness. It's about mercy. And it's about being able to step into the midst of chaos and make sense of things and bring people to better solutions. Here's an example of the alternative with the nihilism stuff. Jennifer Psaki of the Biden administration said, according to Alex Gangitano, Psaki back to a reporter who asked about Biden's stance on abortion, despite the teachings of the Catholic faith. Quote, I know you've never faced those choices, nor have you ever been pregnant, because I guess the person she perceived his gender to be male. And Arthur Schwartz pointed out, is Psaki saying that men can't get pregnant? I thought that was hate speech. And my point in all this is that when your worldview is nihilism, which you don't believe in anything, no meaning, no nothing, then nothing makes sense. And that's the problem we have. We cannot mimic that, where words have no meaning. We can't go down that. That is not a mental healthy state to be. That's not a place you want to be mentally. When you don't want to mimic that maelstrom that those people are operating in. That is a sea of lies. It's a delusional state. You don't want to be there, where you're playing with words and nothing means anything. So that's the problem with that, right? But who benefits from all this chaotic victimism, this victim garbed word game stuff that they keep playing in political correctness? Who benefits are people like this guy, FDA Chief Hahn, the former ex-FDA Chief Hahn. He's joining Moderna's biotech backer. I told you this earlier, but it's at fiercebiotech.com. He authorized Moderna's vaccine 6 months ago. Now, ex-FDA Chief Hahn joins biotech's backer. So this is the reason why I'm connecting this story to that word game stuff, is that that's how people are able to pillage people. People are so distracted in a house of mirrors about victimism and this thing and that thing. And, hey, you can't talk about abortion because you look like a male. But it's like, wait a second, your entire ideology is deleting people's careers, destroying people's lives left and right to try to teach kids that men can have kids. But yet it's not applicable when it's about defending your sacred right to abort a child in the unborn state to the end of, to even delivery. Right? So that's the problem when you're dealing with nihilism. It's just a house of mirrors. You can't engage it like that. You have to bring people who are not totally owned by that stupor. That's the vast majority of people in the middle. You got to be able to bring them to a better direction instead of the madness. You can't let them get stuck in that because otherwise they're just going to be caught in a sea of lies. Another sea of lies, justthenews.com reports evidence mounts that Biden manufactured weeks-long false narrative on Afghanistan. This is by John Solomon, who's a very good reporter who challenges the war machine. Canceled congressional report, request to Afghan president to peddle story whether it is true or not, raise alarm and talk of impeachment by John Solomon. So he was trying to sell a picture that was blatantly lies. They didn't care. They wanted to sell people on they're the heroes, everything's fine, and they wanted to get the optical win. He wanted to be able to use that to appeal to the anti-war votes that supported Trump. And they just botched it. And now they want to, reports are they want to give them the Taliban aid in perpetuity, and they have no problem. The House Democrats, I guess, just voted down a measure to try to get all the weaponry that was left behind in Afghanistan. They just want them to have it. And meanwhile, again, when you have no moral foundation for what you're saying, it's just madness. So on one hand, the Democrats are saying that Republicans and conservatives and anybody who disagrees with them are the Taliban. They're the American Taliban because of what happened in Texas, limiting abortion, which is a sacred sacrament of sacrifice for them. So they call them Taliban. By the way, Islam also curtails pagan sacrifice too. So there's there's always little pieces of truth you can find in twisted lies. But Islam does try to stop pagan sacrifice in the history of Islam coming into different communities. But Christianity, of course, goes even further in its critique of sacrificial violence. But my point in bringing this up is just that there is all of these opportunities for people who are caught up in nihilism, caught up in word games, to just play fast and loose with truth at all times. So one minute they're saying, we're going to give aid to the Taliban. We'll work with the Taliban to fight terrorists. We're going to let them have all the latest of technology and equipment to hurt people easier. Next minute they're saying, well, hey, you conservatives, you're American Taliban if you don't agree with our garbage. What? So it's like, so it's a bad, evil thing to otherize someone in this context, but actually supporting the people themselves, like you guys did with ISIS, with Obama and so forth, and Al-Qaeda in Syria. Oh, okay, that's okay. It's just stupid, right? We have to be beyond this kind of childish idiocy, right? Somebody posted a image of someone named Surratt. Here we are, our friend Surratt. He posted, Texas abortion law is grossly un-American, says the person who wants to force a needle into your child's arm. And it's a picture of a person holding a sign saying mandatory vaccines now, but their t-shirt says my body, my choice. That's the point. When you don't have any grounding in truth, when words mean nothing, they're just a weapon of war, then, all bets are off. You're going to get lost in mental confusion and delusion. You're going to get lost in the crowd. And that's what we have to keep pushing people back. We believe that the body is sacred. And because we believe the body is sacred, we're opposed to harming the unborn children's bodies in the womb. We're opposed to harming the bodies of soldiers and people in other countries with ridiculous immoral wars. We are opposed to hurting the body by lying to people because of special crony interests that tell us to eat vegetable oils, even though those are the things causing the huge spike in chronic diseases like heart disease and cancer and diabetes over the last century. We are opposed to hurting the human body when it comes to caging people for nonviolent crimes or forcing people into the darkness of being in a state of dehumanized isolation because of lockdowns or mandates. We are opposed to attacks against the human body, and that's why we will win against this sad, failing 20th century ideology that wants to use the rhetoric of Christianity to sell us violence and bad, hateful sacrifice. That's the fight in front of us. And we're going to fight every day we can to bring love and neighborly communion back into the forefront of our relationships. I'm David Granosky. We'll be back for hour 2. Stay with us.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. President Biden pledging federal aid to 8 states reeling from Ida's wrath, where at least 40 people are dead.
My message to everyone affected is we're all in this together. The nation is here to help.
Catastrophic and unprecedented flooding hitting New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania last night. New York City streets and subways turned into rivers. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul.
We're still uncovering the true depth of the loss, the human loss, which is hard to imagine, that people simply in their cars, in their homes, in their basements, succumb to the ravages of a brutal storm.
Tornadoes confirmed in New Jersey and outside Philadelphia. Mayor Jim Kenney says those storms part of the new normal.
We must also note that extreme weather events like Ida are not isolated incidents. They are another indication of the worsening climate crisis. We will continue to take critical steps to ready Philadelphia for the climate of the future.
President Biden will visit Louisiana tomorrow to survey damage from Ida when it made landfall there Sunday as a Category 4 storm. The president criticized the Supreme Court's decision to allow a Texas abortion law to remain in effect. It bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy and allows civilians to report anyone who violates those new restrictions. ABC News legal analyst and law professor Kate Shaw says Justice's decision did not finalize everything.
It seems as though access to the constitutionally protected right to an abortion is functionally unavailable in Texas, and even if that's only for a short time, until a judge actually has the opportunity to enjoin the law, the stakes are constitutionally extremely high. But I do think it's important to underscore the court's ruling last night was not the final word on this law, and it may well be that sooner rather than later a judge does reach the merits, finds the law unconstitutional.
You're listening to ABC News.
Do you check your Google search results regularly? You should. People often get their first impression of you or your business online. Negative comments on the internet can impact your life and your livelihood. Take control of your online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. It may reveal negative posts from an ex-employee, upset patient or client, news article, legal issue, or even exposed personal information right there in your Google search results. Uncover what's lurking on the internet about you with reputationdefender.com's patented scan and get your free reputation report card. Or for immediate assistance with your reputation, call 800-401-6681. Our cutting-edge technology helps make your Google search results look their best. Call 800-401-6681. That's 800-401-6681. 800-401-6681. Or take the free scan at reputationdefender.com.
COVID cases still surging across the U.S. The CDC shows cases have topped 100,000 a day for the past 3 weeks straight. And in Europe, new coronavirus restrictions in France.
12 million French children heading back to school being asked to wear face masks, use hand sanitizer, and stand at a distance from each other. These are part of strict government rules aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19 and comes amid fears the end of summer could prompt a new surge of COVID infections in Europe, fueled by the highly contagious Delta variant. Scotland and Germany both reported an increase in cases after schools reopened. Inez de la Cuetara, ABC News, Paris.
When it comes to filling driver positions amid this pandemic, Amazon is taking a new and unique approach.
No drug test given. That's what Amazon is said to be encouraging its delivery partners to advertise as they continue looking for help. Like companies everywhere, Amazon has been struggling to find employees, as have the smaller companies it contracts with for deliveries. Amazon has lobbied the federal government to legalize marijuana and doesn't screen new applicants for cannabis. According to correspondences between Amazon and its delivery owners, it's encouraging them to promote the same thing in looking for employees. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says U.S. traffic deaths the first quarter of 2021 topped 8,700 people, up 10% from last year. This is ABC News.
Your nose is the body's air filter, the first line of defense against airborne allergens, bacteria, and viruses. You wash your hands to protect your health. Now you can clean your nose with Navage. Online at Navage.com. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
What? Just 15 seconds to talk about Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea? That smooth taste of real brewed tea with just the right kick of alcohol? What? We started already. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Look for it in the bright yellow cans.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon, I'm meteorologist Alan Archer at your News Talk 1040 WHBO Weather Center. Our radar is indicating less showers around today than yesterday. Now, partly cloudy this afternoon. It's a 40% chance of a scattered anytime thunder shower with a high of 88, 20% tonight at 78. Tomorrow, partly sunny, drops to a 40% scattered anytime, but mainly afternoon thunder shower and a high of 90. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, News Talk 1040 WHBO.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you for another hour of our broadcast today. You can sign up for our newsletter that we go out once a week on aneighborschoice.com. Just go to aneighborschoice.com, write your email, and you can stay in touch with us as we got all kinds of content on there that's not a part of the usual daily radio show that we do Monday through Fridays right now with you. And joining me now is Dr. Yu. It's time for our Science in You segment, where we dive into physics. We dive into the world of hard sciences primarily, and it's always great to hear from Dr. Yu. How are you doing? I think we don't have him. Can you get Dr. Yu back? Whoop. I heard somebody drop. Let's see if we can get Dr. Yu back. But that's what we do on Thursdays, typically, is we do a dive into physics and chemistry, nuclear science, all kinds of technology, news going on, trying to understand the world of the physical sciences. And that means taking a break from current events in the world of politics. I mean, we've had so much politics. It's toxic. It's exhausting, right? Absolutely exhausting. People are so tired of politics and everything. But that's what happens when people have mass delusions. They draw people into politicizing everything. It's like a religion that, and really what it means is, by the way, when you have politics doing that, is that it's that basically politics is failing. Because when it has to seep out into everything in our lives, when it has to seep out into every aspect of our daily lifestyles and current and culture, it means that it's flailing about in a disorderly way. It means it is driving people to a state of desperation in which they want to basically make everything a part of their total political allegiance, instead of saying, hey, you know what? I can disagree with somebody politically and still be their best friend. That is not an option for people now in the McWoke crowd. That's not an option. It's you are a monster, and that's all you can do. You are a monster, and there is nothing you can say about it because you think differently than me. And I think one of the ways, the reason why I spend time talking about physical science, hard science, is because I think one of the solutions that we have to continually explore together. It's beautiful to study the natural world in and of itself. That's its own reward. But it also has a benefit of being able to help alleviate the pressure cooker-like environment that people get in when they feel like the only solution they can turn to is political coercion. When they can move into a direction where they say, you know what, I don't have to hate my neighbor because we're reducing chronic diseases dramatically without even costing any money. We're just understanding the effects of nutrition. Why is it that all these chronic diseases didn't explode onto the world scene until the introduction of artificial vegetable oils into the human diet? And asking those questions and then finding the answers along the way with data is kind of the way that you can unlock the zero-sum game of everything must be a political solution. Everything must be good versus evil. Everything must be, winner takes all. Everything must be made into a law or a mandate or a tax. And then you get to start to say, wait a second, we can solve diseases just by understanding science and getting things out of our diet or adding things to our understanding of medicine. And the same thing goes for something like the other hysteria, climate change. Every time New York City fails in its infrastructure, having the flooding, or California has fires, all they do is say the bugaboo monster, climate change got you. Hand over more liberties. And people say, yes, that's exactly right. Why do they do that? Because, again, when you don't believe that you can create nuclear energy at room temperature, if you don't believe you can create 24/7 energy panels, then all you're doing is waiting for the TV to tell you what political bill that you have to push onto your neighbor. And that's just not acceptable. So I think we have Dr. Yu with us now. How you doing, Dr. Yu?
Thank you for having me on. I'm doing great. Sorry about the technical miss.
Oh, no problem. It's science and you. It doesn't mean we're going to have the best technological communications always. We're more into the big picture stuff. The Telegraph has a story. It says, Magic Magnetics. Scientists discover the secret of wireless charging. The advent of wireless charging was heralded as a panacea for modern life, able to rapidly recharge phones and other electronics without the need for a cable. However, as with most technological developments, it was a false dawn, as it only works when a phone is placed flatly on top of a charging pad, which is plugged into the mains. But now, scientists have finally managed to fulfill the early promise of wireless charging after building a room that can truly wirelessly charge all compatible devices, whether they are on the table, in someone's pocket, or have fallen under the sofa. Takuya Sasatani, an electrical engineer at the University of Tokyo, built a room and wired it so that there are two magnetic fields bouncing around inside the space. This technique, dubbed multimode quasi-static cavity resonance, involves various conductive surfaces placed around the room and a smattering of capacitors. Safety, the researchers found, was also not an issue because the two magnetic fields are of such low energy that they pose no threat to human health. And so what do you want to point out in this story, Dr. Yu?
First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, I
David?
can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, barely.
Okay.
Yes. So this article basically is talking about, we know right now we have a wireless telephone charger. So basically, cell phone, you can charge your phone without physically plug in, use a wire plug in any device. So we already have some kind of called a charging pad to charging cell phone. You can just lay on your cell phone on top of the charging pad on top of the surface. However, so this scientist discovered a new way. They said you don't have to put your phone on any object, on any surface. Actually, you can just leave it in your pocket and you walk in a room. So the room, the room has this kind of a charging station type of function. You can charge your phone, anywhere in this room. So this is going to be in the future. You can remote charging cars. Yeah.
And how does this work on a magnetic level? You think everything in the world is magnetic, dipolar particles, both positive and negative.
That's the secret. Why we have a rechargeable battery? So that's a theory that's never been fully resolved. But until you use this magnetic, universal magnetic particle theory, you can explain. The so-called the rechargeable battery. The battery itself, it's all the fine magnetic powders. It's originally aligned, polarized, in this one. When you use the battery, those alignment, the polarity alignment and the powder alignment, so that could be disoriented. So that's why your battery will decrease. Your strength of the electricity, will decrease. So the rechargeable battery, the rechargeable principle basically, if you still have if your battery still have some remaining power, right? So that means still have some remaining polarity, and then you just tap it. So using electricity, using electromagnetic wave in the room or in the charging pad, just create a vibratory electromagnetic motion. When you create this motion, what happens? All those magnetic particles, magnetic particles, they misaligned, right? If you just a little bit of tapping, and based on the remaining polarity of a magnetic field, it will realign them. So now your battery, after you realign them, now you have a stronger magnetic field, and then you can create electricity. So if you can mentally think this way, if you use a bar magnet with the iron filings around it, right? So iron firing would be a form of magnetic field lines. However, if a little bit of distance, if sometimes those magnetic firings might be stuck together, right? So if you just a little tapping the little say tapping the glass bottom, so the magnetic firing will realign along the magnetic field lines. So now you form a stronger magnetic field. So this is the recharging. This is the same principle. Yes, those after you use it a while, those magnetic particles, in the liquid or in the solid powder form, so they are misaligned. So by external magnetic field, you have the right frequency, right? Actually resonant with those particles. So just like a little bit of tapping, vibration tapping. So now they realigned with the existing magnetic field. So then you charge it just like a new.
Well, very interesting. I think that's a topic that needs further exploration for what we could possibly achieve with that. I want to go real quickly as we wrap up here in this segment. How could an explosive Big Bang be the birth of our universe? That's an article in Yahoo News. What was something that this is asking? How can we have had a Big Bang as the beginning? It says, what started our own game of chess? That's one of the deepest questions anyone can ask. What do you want to suggest for our audience with this story?
Oh, so this is another way to explain why we have a Big Bang, why Big Bang can create the universe. So the evidence the article provided based on, number one, based on the based on the Hubble's observation, use the telescope observation, we find all the galaxies flying away from each other. So that's indication the whole universe is expanding. So that's one thing. And based on the Hubble's law, we find, not just expanding, actually it's accelerated expanding. So this is some evidence, by observation. And another evidence based on the cosmetic microwave background. So they said, we find we can see the remnants of this explosion of the Big Bang effect, because whenever you have a big dramatic event, you create a vibration waves, right? Some call that's gravitational wave. So those waves and create magnetic noises in the background. And there's some other some theoretical explanation too. But based on my theory, I do not believe universe is created through Big Bang. In the Big Bang theory, they said before Big Bang, there is no space and there is no time, which hardly unimaginable. And I don't believe that's true. So I believe the so-called, the cosmetic microwave background. We know there's a background. We know the space filled with a magnetic field, right? That's how we can see light. So when light propagates, that is a vibration of magnetic field. So that's why we know this field is always there, not necessarily created by one event. So that's what. Another thing about the expansion of the universe. And we have a new observation, and much complete, much accurate than previous, over half centuries ago. And the new observations say, oh, actually, not all galaxies, not everything fly away from each other. And we do find that there's a spot in space called the Great Attraction. And we find many of the galaxies actually fly towards it instead of flying away. So what that means is the so-called expansion of the universe observation may not be accurate, may not be the full story. If you believe that's the story, everything expands, then you have to believe, oh yeah, at a certain time, it started from one point. But new evidence shows not everything is expanding. Actually, there's something flying towards Earth, right? Different galaxies. So what that means this observation is not reliable, and I don't believe that observation can uniquely to point out the universe starting with a single point.
I want to go with you quickly. Earthsky.org says spaceweather.com is saying that 2 enormous bubbles of superheated gas from our sun, otherwise known as coronal mass ejections, are headed towards the Earth. There's no danger to us on Earth, and they're not strong enough to knock out satellites or power grids, but they are about to give a jolt to our planet's magnetic field, causing a beautiful display of auroras at high altitudes. Are these things harmless like they're suggesting, or can they cause problems in our grids and so forth?
If stronger enough, it could cause the breakdown of the grid, electrical grids. However, based on the observation this time, and we found that that's not stronger enough. So the event not so. Even though we observe, because we have a better instrument, we just observe much more detailed, right? But there is no significant impact to the grid system. However, the Earth aurora, in the northern or southern field, south pole, that's the magnetic field interaction with the solar magnetic field interaction with the Earth's magnetic field. So that event could make people to observe those northern lights easier, I believe, or more often.
A commenter on our live stream named Aaron says, just on an intuitive level, the Big Bang seems nonsensical. Explosions don't create, they destroy.
That makes sense. But, the theoretical physics that explain the explosion, they said that, this explosion does not create any particles energy moving. Okay. They said that the space and the time are expanding. The space is expanding. Everything inside is expanding with the space. So you do not feel something impact you from a different location. So it's nonsensical. And I believe space and time always exist. And the matter in the universe, in the figure, and always existed. And the universe formed is not from Big Bang, and it is actually based on the physical electromagnetic, based on the law of magnetism. The universe can form, starting with a cosmic dust, which is a magnetic particle.
Dr. Yu, I appreciate you coming on the show. This is Science and You, our segment we do each and every Thursday. A Neighbor's Choice will continue. And thanks again for joining me, Dr. Yu.
Sorry about the technical problem.
No problem. It happens occasionally. It doesn't matter. Thanks for joining us.
David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified doctor and host of Ask the Doctor. I have designed and developed an amazing omega-3 product. We're seeing outstanding results with our patients at the Lang Eye Institute. This product is called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max, one of the most potent and purest re-esterified triglyceride form omega-3s of
A Neighbor's Choice is back. So we just had our Science and You segment. We did it in one segment today because he had to do it by phone instead of Skype, so it wasn't quite as clear, and I wanted to get as much as we could in one segment done. But I want to look at some of the comments we have here in this short segment. We'll be back in just a moment after this ABC propaganda news break. For radio listeners, if you're on podcast, you're spared that. But it says, it's become impossible to a commenter says it's become impossible to underestimate the level of nefariousness the new normal has in store for us. Australia, once the home of the rugged individual, has now gone woke. Another says, Melbourne will stay in lockdown until 70% is vaccinated, which they say should be reached on approximately September 23rd. At that point, restrictions will be eased, including being allowed to travel 10 kilometers, now 5. Another says, talk about over the target. Another says, you're so right, over here in Europe, they blame Trump. Oh my God, he bought all the remdesivir. Never heard word about it since. Referring to how you never hear any hit pieces on remdesivir because it's a patented product, which means it's part of the good old boy club for your dubious fringe public health officials. Another says, they don't just make up the science, it's all exaggerated as required. And another one says, another great show for kindred spirits. So, yeah, I mean, looking at some of those comments, there's a lot of people are fed up with this nonsense, and it's a worldwide state of fed up minds that people are in right now. So we need to continue to direct that alertness into positive, nonviolent, creative solutions that can create energy too cheap to meter. That's why I give you physical science news, so that you can be inspired to use your mind, to use your hands, to create stuff, to alleviate the scarcity that people are fighting over. The climate change thing, they would force you into mandates and lockdowns over climate change if they can get away with it. So we have to be able to solve these problems like pollution, like disease, with our real world, real solutions, not the political coercion that they're stuck on. So we'll take a quick break and return with Tho Bishop of the Mises Institute. Life, brought to you by
Weekday afternoons 4 to 6.
our friends at Corporate Interest.
It's a neighbor's choice.
Who thinks that's science?
With David Gornoski.
Now, Humanity, brought to you by your monthly booster product to being a human being. Rest of your life. Dentist-level virology labs and CCP China will continually just mess around with stuff, and oops, if they cough,
The neighbor's choice.
we've got a new booster for you every moment of your life.
Weekday afternoons 4 to 6.
Who wants to live in that?
News Talk 1040.
Where's the left?
WHBO.
Come on, left, wake up.
President Biden with a promise to residents of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeastern
My
states.
message to everyone affected is we're all in this together. The nation is here to help.
At least 55 deaths in 8 states are blamed on the remnants of Ida, which tore up the East Coast last night. ABC's Dan Lieberman in New York Central Park says flash flooding turned some roads into rivers, which kept first responders from getting to drivers.
We're talking about would have been a once in 100-year flood. Now there's a risk. Scientists are telling us that this could happen in a year, many times. So there are real concerns here. New York City waking up really in a state of disbelief this morning when we've heard so much about the fatalities, the numbers that keep rising in terms of fatalities. So this is a tragic day here across the region.
He says that no one expected the storm to be as bad as it was. And the cleanup is just beginning in many places. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
News Talk 1040. Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer at your News Talk 1040 WHBO Weather Center. Our radar is indicating less showers around today than yesterday. Now, partly cloudy this afternoon. It's a 40% chance of a scattered anytime thunder shower with a high of 88, 20% tonight at 78. Tomorrow, partly sunny, drops to a 40% scattered anytime, but mainly afternoon thunder shower and a high of 90. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, News Talk 1040 WHBO.
David Gornoski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm live here with Tho Bishop, who is an editor at the Mises Institute, their website, mises.org. Tho, how you doing? Do we have Tho?
Yes, can you hear me?
There you go, Tho. How you doing?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Always great to join you.
Yeah, glad to have you on again. I wanted to get your take. You know, the big hysteria of the minute, they're still screaming bloody murder about Joe Rogan having the audacity to get sick and then take whatever he wants to take for his healing. I'm looking at a hysterical screenshot of Anderson Cooper with his little minions on there, and they're saying, Joe Rogan announces he has COVID, praises horse dewormer ivermectin. They're using big tobacco-style, wall-to-wall persuasion techniques, and I covered this earlier, that it's very effective because they take a kernel of truth, which is this product that they're attacking. 4 billion people have used it in human tablet form for decades, Nobel Prize winning, created by a Japanese scientist. Certainly wouldn't want to, continually slander this man's name as some kind of just all he did was deworming horses. Not that that's not a breakthrough itself. It has its use also in animal form, as many drugs do. But you've got big pharma, big tobacco style liars on hand in the media when they all use the same cookie cutter language like dewormer. They use that word to appeal to us on an emotional disgust level that you see the word worm and it makes you recoil, right? And if you've got that disgust mechanism in your mind, it's a very powerful persuasion technique to shut down rational thought.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the script has gone out. We have seen it repeated ad nauseum over the last few days. And again, we've gotten kind of used to thinking of someone like Brian Stelter over at CNN as being kind of an easy punchline at a joke. Sometimes it feels, he's just a blob of a human being, gushing on about the most irrelevant things out there. Today is a great reminder that, these sort of people are not simply, easy punching bags as caricatures of the worst aspects of the corporate press. These people are evil. I mean, what they are doing right now with just this blatant, the agenda here is on display for everyone. And the fact you're going to have a section of the American population that is resistant to using these sort of proven effective treatments at COVID because of this propaganda being pushed out there for the corporate press. And unfortunately, this has been the true purpose of these major, media outlets for so long now, is to, cost Americans lives through promoting false narratives, be it on COVID today, the war in Afghanistan in the past, for decades and decades on. The corporate press truly is the enemy of the people, and again, the vulgarity of this particular tactic the last few days, the acceleration of it, is incredible to watch, even as someone who's been a long-time fierce critic. And it's because I think they're terrified of people like Joe Rogan, of people like yourself, the sort of reach that you have beyond their control, and they realize that they are losing their ability to dictate the narrative out there.
Yeah, it certainly reeks of desperation, and they're flexing their muscle. They remind me of the establishment, that they like to flex their muscle about how much they can get people to snap like little zombies into regurgitating their little brainwashing words. They just put that word like, watch us, boom, dewormer, 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 the dumb parrots say. And they'd have no critical, there's nothing there. They just shut down, and it's like that Game of Thrones where you have the Ice King or whatever the character, and he can do one move and all of a sudden the zombies just move on command. And it's a terrifying thing to watch it, right? Because it's such a dark part of human nature that we're seeing in a very open way. And it's very unsettling when you really look at it face to face, when you look at the madness of crowds, right?
Right. And again, this is deliberate on their part. They recognize what they're doing. And then, of course, then the question is, okay, well, what is the agenda involved here? Jordan Chattel, who's got a great Substack, I think he's based here in Florida. He's been doing some very interesting work and kind of tracing back the first language of the dewormer thing. And there's some interesting connections there with people around the Bill Gates orbit and that sort of aspect of it. But again, there is an agenda at play here. And again, the beauty of it is, I know there was a poll, I think, that was released last week. I can't remember the organization out there, but, it was just, marking the collapse of faith in the corporate press. I think with Republicans, it was down to 30%. I don't know where they found that 30 at this point, but that's been the one major cultural shift, I think, and political shift, thanks to, what Donald Trump did for 5 years, is highlighting again, the fact that the corporate entity within this country now is an actively, the degree to which their interests are so disaligned with the American people. I mean, I think it was Joe Kent that talked about how, our government, despises the population. Again, at this point, the corporate press is a connection there. And what's really kind of dangerous as well is that earlier today, I believe it was a major national medical association are now trying to crack down. I mean, I think it's the National even the National Association of Pharmacists were encouraging pharmacists to not fill prescriptions of ivermectin, if they get it in. I mean, again, that sort of direct control over these industries, which kind of goes to this larger problem with centralization of power through these national organizations and how they end up kind of, the people end up writing these things are not always the best among us. again, the structural issue here is really, again, it's never been, I think, this vivid. And again, hopefully Americans, I've talked to doctors today who are absolutely livid at what's going on, and they're recognizing the dangers of these sort of things more than they've ever had in the past. Before there's ever going to be any sort of attempt to fix these sort of institutional problems that have existed for a very long time, it required people to awaken to how deep this rot really is. And again, hopefully, everything that's gone on the past 18 months, I think we're seeing that. Hopefully the left has overplayed its hand here, or else, it can easily be imagined a day where America might look, something like Australia.
And though I know this may not be a topic that, you have focused on, I don't know, maybe you have, but imagine how livid people are now who are just now starting to realize how egregious and ridiculous, this crooked little scam government agencies are for this disease. Imagine how much more so they're going to feel when they realize that so many of the diseases that they think they just have to live with, like diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, would not be happening at the rates that they're happening if not for the misinformation about what are the proper standards of standard protocol, standards of care for cancer, for example. Let me give you an example. Dr. Dr. Thomas Seyfried, we've had him on the show many times. He's a groundbreaking biologist at a Boston college who has showed that cancer is a mitochondrial disease, not a genetic disease. Everything that the government mandates with their little cronies, the same usual suspects who are telling you wormer to scare you with recoil, these are the same people that they're stuck on one standard of care for cancer, which is only focused on chemo, radiation, and surgery. Those models, those methods do not deal, they deal with typically shrinking the tumor, not stopping metastasis. And what, Dr. Lasanti and Dr. Seyfried and others have been focusing on in the real science is using non-toxic off-label use of things like antibiotics, things like therapeutic ketosis to really attack the cancers and stop metastasis itself. But here's the thing. Those things are not patentable. They're off-label or they're dietary corrections. And so because of that, Dr. Seyfried told me, he said, a guy that works at a hospital said, Dr. Seyfried, if people accept the science that you've shown about how cancer should be dealt with, hospitals are going to go bankrupt because we make so much of our money from like radiation, the radiology department alone.
The economic incentives of our medical system, and this is stuff that's only been amplified with kind of some of the aspects of Obamacare that's easy to overlook, like the increase of medical coding and things like that. When you create and this is long been an issue with Medicare and Medicaid. The more that government funding of medical services, when that becomes a rely upon method, codes, and you end up creating a bureaucratic aspect to patient treatment, because that's the way you're paid, is that you've got to check, this government form, you got to use a specific code, and that's the way you get your funding back. Beyond the additional aspects, and we saw this also on play with COVID on different government payments for coding things with COVID and other sort of things, and that pure cronyistic element that is so baked into these large medical institutions. Even just the knowledge aspect in the way that these the funding operations of the modern American medical system, it is the weaponization, the politicalization of science, at the consequence of the rest of society. And thankfully, we do have platforms like yours. I mean, the number of incredible thinkers that you've opened your microphone to, and to really pursue the actual truth is one of the best things about your show. Because again, it's amazing the degree to which genuine scientific inquiry is silenced, while within the very institutions funded for that operation right now.
Now, as someone who wants to downsize DC's role in our life, do you see the silver lining? I see that by DC playing their hand to really use medicine and health as their pressure point to try to inject so much control over our lives. Do you see that as ultimately a big blunder in the long term? Because as more of the internet illuminates people's minds, for example, I think 90% of chronic diseases over the last century could have been mitigated or not happened at all if we had not been eating government subsidized and recommended vegetable oils. because of what they do to our mitochondria, what they do to create inflammation and the cytokine storms that people experience with this disease and other things. So many of the diseases, heart disease, again, issues like autoimmune disorders, mental disorders, so many of these things, they weren't prevalent in the century before government got us eating vegetable oils every day instead of butter and, traditional fats. So do you see that as an opportunity for us to really say, hey, maybe you still wear 16 masks, but are you going to finally realize that the science says eating another dose of vegetable oil may be causing your family to have the heart disease that they're having? I mean, is that the breakthrough? Is that people say, you know what? I believe they're COVID crap, but after I learned what they've done to exacerbate my diabetes with their false information, exacerbate my autoimmune disorders, I think I've had enough of these people. It's time to think for myself. Could that be the tipping point?
Well, I don't have a tremendous amount of faith in the ones wearing 16 masks at this point, but I do think you do see a general awakening. You have this very interesting kind of fusion going on the right between kind of this hippie alternative medicine, holistic approaches to health, coupled with kind of the anger of kind of the Trump patriots out there, that aesthetic. And I think that this is creating a very dangerous force for the left, because one of the blind spots the left creates for itself, when their entire ideology is built around kind of the worship of democracy and, what they consider civil rights and this, that, and the other, is that they end up kind of buying into their own rhetoric. They get high off their own supply a little bit in the way they think about politics. And I think it's very easy for people to think that, if you have, a 45, 55, race in any sort of ballot, and then, all the 45 that voted for, Team Red or Team Blue really are invested in Team Red and Team Blue. And that's the reality, is that the majority of Americans, when they make political decisions, they don't do so for there's very few genuine ideologues as a percentage of the population. Most people want to get about their daily basis, and a lot of political decisions are made for non-ideological reasons. Maybe you're born in a family, never thought that much about the ideology. Maybe that's just, you're in just an area like that. The more that these issues, and again, it's not simply, I think the health dynamic is huge, obviously, because of literally dealing with life and death. I think the issues on the education side of things, I think you start shutting down people's livelihoods because the opinion of Dr. Fauci, repeatedly lying to the public, those sort of issues, I think, is activating a segment of that otherwise agnostic, even if habitual one tribe or another voter, activating them to be explicitly hostile against the agenda of the left. And again, we've seen, we saw that a little bit play out with the massive increase in turnout during the 2020 election and the overperformance of the Republican Party in congressional districts across the country, state legislative races, and et cetera, et cetera. Quite play out in the presidential race. Plenty of interesting questions for that. But again, I think there is this growing backlash against this progressive, control freak mindset of politics. And, if that happens, then, all of these smug, progressives that assume their victory was inevitable may be, may be regretting how things are going in the next 2, 4, 6 years.
We're speaking with Tho Bishop of the Mises Institute, their website, mises.org. We're going to take a quick break. I want to get Tho's opinion on the Texas law with abortion and some of the other stories in the news today. Back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified doctor and host of Ask the Doctor. I have designed and developed an amazing omega-3 product. We're seeing outstanding results with our patients at the Lang Eye Institute. This product is called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max, one of the most potent and purest re-esterified triglyceride form omega-3s available in the world today. Developed with the top nutritional research teams in Norway, it is without a question one of the most potent triglyceride forms omega-3. It comes in a gel cap that is easy to digest. I've created a 50% more more potent-based omega-3. It was designed from research of the latest clinical studies to bring 2,400 milligrams of the purest omega-3 in the world. Omega-3 is great for all aspects of your health and well-being. Fortify Super Omega usually retails for $35. I'm providing a 25% discount with promo code RADIO. Go to my website, fortify.com. That's Fortifeye, fortify.com. Remember the EYE and Fortify. I am Dr. Lang, and I am keeping America fit and healthy with clean supplements.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is definitive with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
We're back on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky. Happy to have this time with you as we explore the news cycle with our friend Tho Bishop, who joins me again. He's the editor at Mises.org. He's an editor there and someone who is very much interested in changing the narrative about politics and culture and how it works with economics. So, Tho, I wanted to ask you, too, do you think that this Rogan story could be a big cultural moment to, again, kind of continually attack and bury this hive mind fervor of perpetual lockdowns and coercion and forced medicine? I mean, I think that in an ideal world, the big bombshell study that came out recently in Tel Aviv University and showing 76,000 Israelis and natural herd immunity was the best long-term immunity. That, you know, in an educated world, that would be the big turning point, but we're not an educated culture right now. In large part, we're a culture and, you know, celebrity-driven culture. And so Joe Rogan's the biggest podcaster in the world, and that's a big moment when he says, I'm doing fine, and I took the unauthorized solution. I didn't do what the king says, which is to stay home, take a Tylenol, and wait till you're blue in the lips to go to the hospitals for ventilators and no treatments that have been used for millions of people around the world. Is this a big moment culturally?
I hope so. I think that they think it is, and I think that's why you're going to see the amplification of all of this. Again, and I think that, and the funny thing is that, like, the Rogan example, perhaps, really isn't, necessarily the biggest, aha moment on this issue. Of course, there's been plenty of other, evidence supporting the effectiveness of this treatment. But in the case of Rogan, he's a very active, athlete in his own right. He took a number of other treatments. I believe he might have, I think he said on his show that he was also vaccinated in the past. I might be wrong about that, but I've been told that. So in the grand scheme of things, like, this shouldn't be what's freaking them out. But they are afraid, and it's beginning. And you see this with just, I think, the long-standing backlash against that platform in general for questioning the official narrative. I hope that this is the moment, and I think particularly given where the more the studies and the actual scientific record, the way that it continues to push back against, what public health experts, quote unquote, have been saying about the long-term effectiveness of the vaccines, about, again, just the entire strategy of focusing on zero COVID and prevention while letting, genuine conversations about treatment being kind of completely neglected or outright censored, as was the case, has been the case for the last 18 months. Anybody that's capable of kind of seeing through the mouthpieces on big culture and its variety of outlets. I mean, I think that there's a lot more people waking up now than we perhaps had in the past. So again, hopefully this is the moment where you really start to see backlash build. I mean, at the very least, the other side is worried, and that always gives me cause for optimism.
Now I want to turn to the Texas abortion law. Can you comment? Apparently, I haven't looked into the details too much, but the New York Times reports that the Supreme Court refuses to block the Texas abortion law, which the sacred gods of D.C. would say you are commanded to block it. This is a sacred ritual that you are not to allowed to be interrupted in any way across the land. What's your assessment of the law as well as the cultural reaction that's going to be coming from it?
Well, I particularly like the dissent from Justice Sotomayor because there's so much language where she's completely freaking out and talking about how extreme this is, and like the language she uses is just great. Like it's everything that she's complaining about is what I like about this ruling. I fear, however, that there's a possibility that this is kind of that all of the great celebration within the pro-life movement, it might be short-lived. The actual details of this is simply them saying that they're not going to take a proactive role in stopping the legislation from going into action. Within the opinions in favoring not acting, there's plenty of language there that suggests that there are concerns that still exist among the judges that ruled the way they did. And saying that does open up, I think, with how this whole topic, plays out in the future, that's open-ended. But again, the absolute hysteria from people that have never stepped foot in the state of Texas, completely outraged that New York and California is no longer setting no longer setting their abortion policy, at least for a short period of time. Is great to see. I like them being upset is usually a good thing in the political sphere. I also think that in general, the political calculation, you've seen some people, even like Republicans, say, "Oh, I'm concerned about this because this might spark a backlash, and all I have to do is let Joe Biden keep burying themselves a hole for the Democrats, and we'll have power again." The question, of course, is what's the purpose of a Republican Party having power if you're not following through on these sort of major, these very important positions within the party. And I also think that given the changing voter demographics, the voting behavior amongst Hispanic voters in Texas, the way that the abortion issue ends up playing might end up backfiring spectacularly for the left. Again, just going to their disconnect between their gospel and the way the actual human beings operate.
So another example of states taking more of a active role in social issues and issues of life and so forth. But the question is, and that's a lot of people, including Jeff Dice, talk about how we need to have people return to local focus. But the question is, will DC leave these states to practice their culture and their values the way they want, or are they going to continually try to be nation builders like they tried in Afghanistan?
Well, you see this even kind of play out with Florida's big tech bill, which is currently, which was been stalled by federal courts. As if Washington, and this entire idea that the federal government should be dictating, the appropriate legislation that happens within the states dealing with the citizens of the states. Unfortunately, the actual legal apparatuses, within the federal regime as it stands right now, the direct result of the consequences of the 20th century's push towards centralization. Within the court system, there are still plenty of ways that can be used to fight back against some of this kind of renewed federalism at the state level. Again, I worry that the Supreme Court, even with the...
We're out of time. Thanks again for joining us.
For news, talk, and information, 1040.